thank you for the introduction, and thank you so much to Joe for giving me the invite to speak at this event. It's a really, really big opportunity. So I'm going to be speaking on the necessity for public engagement in geothermal energy developments. And as we've heard this morning already, I think public opinion, or the industry's opinion, is changing towards this, and it's becoming very important because most people have mentioned it, at least in their talk. Throughout my presentation, I'm going to run through the context, why bother doing it in the first place, why should geothermal developers invest their time and money and effort into public engagement. I'll draw in examples from the United Downs Deep Geothermal Power Project in Cornwall, which is where my experience comes from, and touch on the impact of education and why it's important to address education in particular when you're looking at public engagement. And also how to address those stickier issues by being transparent and open, because in all resources, when you're trying to develop them, there is something that is not going to go down so well. And to address the elephant in the room with geothermal, it's seismicity. I'll stress that I am talking about deep geothermal today, not necessarily the shallow geothermal. But to address these wider issues, I once went to a talk, and it was from Ian Stewart when I was doing my master's at University College Cork. And he opened with, "We are the odd ones out. Most people don't care." And that really struck a chord with me because I really wanted people to care. But he's right. We can talk about this a lot within our sort of echo chamber, but we are the geothermal converts already. We're scientists, we're specialists, we love the detail, but most people don't. And so in order to develop geothermal successfully, we need to reach those people and try and get geothermal to become a household name, just as wind and solar is. But how do we do that? We have an extra challenge with geothermal because it's not just the impact that we have to address when we're talking to people. What potential impact could it have on them? We also have to invariably explain what geothermal is. And you have a juxtaposition between where the specialist is coming from and the non-specialist. And you'll talk to somebody who says, yep, I understand geothermal, I have one of those. And already you've got to address that issue of deep geothermal versus shallow geothermal. And they're right, you're talking about geothermal is heat from the earth. Geo means earth, thermal means heat. And their heat comes from their ground source heat pump, which is the earth. So you have to explain that as well. But why is it important? Why is it important to get the public on side when you're developing geothermal? Well, the public can, if they don't support you, it can really make things very difficult, and it could put the project to a stop completely. So in order to gain that so important social license to operate that John Barry mentioned, we need to address the public's concerns and be empathetic with them. I'm going to draw on some examples from the United Downs project. The company I work for, Geoscience, were delivery partners at the project from its inception 10 years ago until May this year. And my boss, Peter Leddingham, was the project manager, and the team did all the technical work, and we were very heavily involved with the dissemination and design and delivery of the outreach program. Dissemination was a requirement. It was an EU-funded project. It was public money, but we knew it would be important from the start of the project, and we wanted to do it. So it was really nice that it was a requirement, and we had the budget and time allocation to be able to do it. The public for us meant everybody, from school children that were 7 years old right through to MPs, to communicate our message and why we thought this was such an important thing to go forward with. We spent a lot of time building trust, and by doing that, we had to be completely transparent. We are a local company, and we are a part of the community, but we also wanted the community to have ownership of the project and really feel a part of the project. And a way in which we did that was to form a community liaison group really early on, before we started drilling or any of that, so that members of the community in the local villages could come to these group meetings and express their concerns, either from themselves or from people in the community. And that formed that open two-way communication from a really early stage. We also employed a community relations manager who still works on the project, and her job was to really integrate with the community and attend coffee mornings and Christmas fairs and that sort of thing, and really build that relationship. So there was they could see us as a part of the community, and there was that ongoing dialogue to again help build trust. To address the wider community, and those, we call them green ambassadors, the people that were already flying the flag for renewable energy and combating climate change, but didn't necessarily know or understand geothermal in its entirety. We held a Green Ambassadors event before we launched the project, which gave them the opportunity to ask us any questions that they may have. And so that when they were flying the flag of renewable energy, they could talk about geothermal in an informed way. Having the University of Plymouth as delivery partners was also a massive asset when it came to public dissemination, because of their experience in communication and that sort of thing. Other examples that we did as outreach were holding monthly open days. So once a month, whilst the drilling rig was on site, we would throw the doors open for 2 hours on a Saturday, and that gave the members of public an opportunity to come to site. And it was quite a unique thing and proved to be really, really popular. On our busiest day, we had 160 people through the door in 2 hours, and the whole team had to take part. No one could escape public engagement. So the public came to the site and they were able to ask questions to the project manager, the geologist, the engineers, the drillers, technicians, graphic designer, everybody who was involved. And so everyone felt that they could talk to somebody about their interests. And those open days created a community within the community. We had a group of men that used to come religiously every month and have a coffee and meet there. And they were old tin miners, because Cornwall is a real rich mining heritage county. And they used to love coming and having their coffee, talking about the geothermal projects, a new form of mining, and their old tin mining days. We did a lot of on-site presentations, funded community projects, attended lots of local events and county shows, and designed and delivered an education program. So it did take a lot of time. It's a lot of effort, but it's worth it. It's the right thing to do, and it's fun as well. I'll touch more on the education program, because education is a really powerful tool and a really good way to engage the community. As Rick mentioned, these deep geothermal projects take years to get off the ground. United Downs took 10 years from planning to exploration to actually getting a drilling rig on site. And so if we want to secure the future of this industry, we need to start informing the youngsters in the areas that we want to do this about what it is and how it is, and start generating that household name early on. The children learn about geothermal, they go home, they talk to their parents about what they've learned, and it starts getting geothermal in the household name, so it will eventually become more and more familiar. We talked to all ages in the education program, and we always found people that were interested. So geothermal is something that grabs the imagination and attention of all ages, from 7 right through to university. So it's great to be able to let them know that it's out there. And the information filters up. There's a hard to reach audience when you're doing outreach, and it's the sort of middle-aged parents and professionals that are really busy with their lives and perhaps don't have time to attend events and things. So the children go home to their parents and they tell them about it, but also with the community relations manager talking to the older population, it filters down as well. So you end up reaching all age groups, which is great. The way we went about doing the education program was creating a multitude of resources. So we created animations and newsletters and class resources and PowerPoints. And the 3 animations that we made were a really big hit. The first one was Miss Molecule's Mission, which was the primary school animation. The second was a secondary school sort of explainer animation about geothermal in the context of climate change and against other different resources. And the last one was specifically on seismicity, because we knew that was something we had to address head on. With Miss Molecule's mission, Miss Molecule was a character that we created. She was a water molecule, and her job was to collect heat from the bottom of the reservoir, bring it up the production well, tip it into a heat exchanger to create electricity, and then surf down the injection well, because she was a Cornish water molecule. And it was really popular. We had obstacle courses around it and everything, and it was something that the kids could really get their heads around and explain. We had several members of staff that were STEM ambassadors, and we were able to attend lots of different STEM events, and that was a good way of connecting with the council as well. Even if it's a council representative who was in the education department, information filters through, and so it's good to just be able to connect with a lot of different people on a lot of different levels, because you never know where that information might go. We did a lot of school assemblies and have, again, formed quite good friendships and relationships with teachers around the county, and we are still doing assemblies. Whilst the rig was on site, we had lots of schools visit the rig because it was a unique opportunity. So we were able to show them what was happening on their doorstep. And again, it's another inspirational thing that we could show them this could be the future. This is what we could do. And as Ian suggested, we did the Raspberry Shake program, which was installing 9 microseismometers in the local secondary schools so that they could be actively involved with a real project that was happening. A lot of the time, school children are taught these subjects and they go, oh, I'm never going to use this. When am I going to use this? But this was an example of how you really use data in a job that is being carried out. Again, as Ian said from my first comment, we are the odd ones. We, as technical people, are concerned about how we're going to make it work, hitting the right target volts, are we going to get the temperatures, all of these, getting policy in place to do it, all of these sort of solutions. But when you talk to most people, their concerns are you going to keep me up 24 hours a day with a drilling rig? Are you going to block the country roads? Is it going to be lit up like Blackpool Tower? And are you going to make the ground shake? And is my house going to fall down? Those are the things that people are concerned about. And to address those, you have to have that open two-way communication. And these are all really valid concerns. So they need to be addressed with tangible solutions and in a way that is completely transparent. So to take noise as an example, our two-way communication was to put in place a noise management plan and an easy way for people to complain and reach us. Our addressing the concern was to put noise monitoring system in place before the drilling even started, so we could monitor before, during and after, and to soundproof the rig. And we also chose, we knew this was a concern before the rig selection process, so we chose the quietest rig that we could find. And we made the data public, which this was a benefit not just for the community because they could see that we were really trying to come up with solutions, but also for the operator and developer, because you could prove something wasn't you if you had a noise complaint, for example, because you could listen back to the sound, or you could say, oh, thank you for your complaint. We weren't doing anything at that time. Here is the sound file to show what it was. And normally if we had a complaint, it was a really bad stormy night and rain and that sort of thing. So these things can be put in place both for the community, but for the developer also. The same system was carried through with seismicity. So we had a seismic management plan, easy way to complain, a dedicated seismic monitoring system, and the data is made public via the BGS, which is another delivery partner. And of course, the school children can also check it on their Raspberry Shakes. So in conclusion, public engagement educates people. It gives them the information that you want them to have, instead of them Googling geothermal and getting Basel, for example, and forming ideas that you don't necessarily want to address. You want them to have the information that you have available. It increases acceptance of deep drilling and geothermal exploration, which is great for future developments, for getting the industry off the ground. It generates trust for future developments. If you want to go and develop another project in a nearby area, then you have backup from your local community that you've already engaged with. It saves time because you're not fighting fires with complaints and things all the time. It ensures that the job is carried out smoothly and the staff are happy. When you bring a drilling rig to town or to the countryside, you also bring 40 extra members of the community with you, and they have to live and work and eat in the local pubs and that sort of thing. So it's just much easier and nicer if the community can accept them and they can feel part of that community. It promotes longevity for the industry through education. I think that's a really important thing. And it permits us that social license to operate. So at the beginning, I said, why would you bother doing public engagement? But perhaps the question should be, why wouldn't you do it? Thank you.